My girlfriend Tanya and I were both hardworking people. In fact, we started dating mostly because of our similarity in the schedule, status, and taste in music. But no matter how hard we worked, we were always short on money, as most of it went on rent of 2 apartments and food. We were talking about living together to cut the costs, but we weren't being able to manage time. That was why we didn't have much money most of the time, and even if we saved a little, Tanya would spend it on meaningless items. And to add to the money problem, we were already on loan, so I was having a really hard time. But I was happy Tanya was with me no matter what. One day, Tanya came to my apartment to discuss something. I was pretty clueless about what she wanted to discuss, but I was curious. "I wanted to tell you that I'm going out of town for a week," she said as she settled in. "What? Where?" I asked, as I was concerned why she would make plans all of a sudden, and that too alone. But before we move on, like this video, hit that subscribe button and activate the notification bell, and your crush will reveal their deepest and darkest secrets to you. Trust me, it works. "It's not important. You need to trust me on this," she said and hurried out of my place. I knew she rushed to get out to avoid being questioned, but I trusted her, and I thought she would tell me about it later. And to be honest, I had no other choice. So I waited for her to come back, but it was really hard maintaining my patience, especially because I didn't hear from her throughout the week. I even tried calling and left a text, but got nothing in return. And because of that, I lost all my focus from work, wondering where she went and why. The week had passed, and I still hadn't gotten any texts from her, so I went to her apartment to check if she had returned, but the apartment was still locked. And although I had the key, I didn't want to go in because I didn't want to be more disappointed than I already was. So I returned to my apartment feeling a little down. But when I went inside, I felt like someone was already in there. So I rushed to turn the lights on and saw Tanya. She had been there for hours just to surprise me. And not only that, she had brought gifts for me, expensive ones. "You took a long time to get back from work," she questioned. "Yeah, I stopped by your place on my way," I replied. I was very happy she was finally back and that I would get to know where she had been. So I asked her, "Will you tell me where you went now?" "Hey, let's go out to a nice place to get dinner," she said, pretending she didn't hear my question at all. But I knew she was avoiding having to answer, and I had no idea why. "Come on, let's go out," she said again as I didn't answer her the first time. "Babe, we don't have that kind of money. We need to save for 2 months before making such purchases," I replied and felt bad about my financial condition. "You don't have to worry about it. I'll handle it," she said and took me out to a fancy restaurant. We had the fanciest meal we ever had since we started dating. However, my mind was hung up on how my girlfriend got the money for all of it. But since we were both having a good time, I decided to save the questions for later and enjoy. And when we reached home, that was the first thing I did. "Hey, Tanya, how do we get money for all this? First the gifts and then the dinner?" I asked. "I was saving some on the side for a while," she said, and added that she was tired and went to sleep. But I knew something was fishy. First, she was not being truthful, because I would know if she was saving. And second, she was ignoring most of my questions, especially about the week she went away. There must be a connection between her going away and having a lot of money all of a sudden, I thought. But at the same time, I trusted her, and being suspicious seemed wrong. But what else could I have done? So to get rid of the suspicions in my head, I decided to find out the truth on my own. And for that, I made a plan to follow her without her knowing and keep an eye on where she went. The first 2 days of following her around felt like such a waste. She just went to her work and later came back to her apartment. And that caused me to lose 2 of my working days for nothing. I had asked my friend Nick to cover for me, and for that I had to discuss my reasons with him. So I told him how my girlfriend had gone away without letting me know where and suddenly started to have a lot of money, and the fact that she ignored me when I questioned her. "I'll try asking around, see what I find," he said after hearing my sob story, and I told him that I was grateful for having a friend like him. So on the 3rd day of me following my girlfriend, I was worried that that day too would be a waste like the other 2, but that was not the case. That day, she didn't even go to work. First, she went to the bank. I wonder why. Is someone sending her money through the bank? I thought. But that was something unusual, so I immediately took out my phone and took a picture of her going in. After coming out of the bank, she went to the expensive part of town and bought a lot of expensive stuff, and then went back to her apartment. The pictures I took there were enough to demand an answer from her, and I felt a bit closer to finding out the truth. So, with a little relief in my heart, I went back to work as there was still a lot of time remaining for my shift. But when I got there, Nick dropped a bomb on my head. As soon as he saw me coming, he pulled me aside and took out his phone. "Man, I found out something about your girl, but before I tell you about it, I want to know that you will be fine," he said, looking all worried. I was curious about what he was about to say, so I told him to go on and that I would be fine. "I found your girlfriend's OnlyFans page. Maybe she's getting all the money from there," he said. "It cannot be," I said, as I couldn't believe what he had just said. But then he opened his phone and showed me the account. I took the phone in my hand and looked at it, and I was shocked to see the account. It had my girlfriend's name and her picture and a racy description. "I hate to break it to you like this, but it's clearly her. If I could pay to watch her content, I'd get access just to show you," he said. "It cannot be her. She wouldn't do this. And even if it is, maybe she's sharing something else and not adult content," I said, trying to give myself hope, but Nick wasn't helping. "With that description? Well, I'm no one to have a say. You can believe what you want," he said and left. He's not wrong, I thought. And as I started believing that she must have been doing something questionable to get the money, I became angrier and angrier. So without waiting even for a second, I rushed out and headed to her apartment. "Tanya," I shouted as I reached her apartment. I saw that there were expensive items scattered all over her place and new furniture. She must have sensed the anger in my voice as she came running out of her room just seconds after hearing me. "What is it? Why are you shouting?" she asked. "I want you to answer what all of these things are and how you got the money for it," I said, and after hearing that, her face went pale. "I also want to know where and why you went that 1 week, why you went to the bank today, and how you got all the money all of a sudden to buy expensive stuff," I added. She went all silent and just looked away without saying anything, but I wanted her to speak up, so I decided to say something rude to hurt her intentionally so that she would speak up. "Come on, Tanya, no silence. It won't do for me, and no lies. Tell me, did you do something illegal, criminal, or questionable?" I said in a very rude manner. She gave me a sad look and started crying, which made me realize that I was a little too much. But then she also started spilling everything, so I was a little glad that it worked. She told me that she came from a family of widely known criminals, which she didn't like at all. She didn't like what they did, and she was nothing like them, so she decided to cut ties with them and move to another town as far as she could from her criminal family. She didn't want anyone to know who her family was, so she made up a fake story about her parents passing away in a car accident and told everyone that story, even me. "I was afraid that you wouldn't love me if you knew," she said in her defense. And then, suddenly, a week before she had left, she got a call from her family lawyer about her grandmother's passing. He told me that she had left me a lot of money in her will and that he was going to hand it over after the funeral. So I decided to go there for a week, she said, and added that she wouldn't have gone if we had not been having such a hard time regarding money. Meanwhile, as she was explaining, I was feeling worse and worse about my behavior, but she kept on speaking. "And today, I went to the bank to pay our loans off as that was the first thing I wanted to do. I am so sorry I didn't tell you everything in the beginning," she said, and continued crying even louder. I tried to calm her down, but in my head, I was still wanting an explanation of the OnlyFans account, but she completely stopped talking, so I went on and asked, "What about your OnlyFans account?" She stopped crying and looked at me. "Only what?" she questioned and looked somewhat clueless. So I showed her the account, and her reaction was completely unexpected. She looked scared, but not the guilty scared, but honest scared. "I don't know what this is and who did this. It's not me. You can check all my electronics," she said, and begged for me to trust her. Although I had been suspicious all along, after all she had explained, I believed her. So I calmed her down and we decided to visit the cybercrime department of the police first thing next day. And that was what we did. We went to the police and set a complaint about the account for identity theft. The police traced the account back to the perpetrator in no time and arrested and brought him in. And to our surprise, the one posing to be Tanya on OnlyFans was no other than Nick. I felt so bad about trusting a snake instead of my girlfriend. I didn't even want to see his face, but I wanted to know why he did what he did. And it wasn't that hard. He easily gave me an answer when I questioned him about it. He confessed to me that he had a crush on Tanya for a very long time, and after he saw trouble in our relationship, he saw a chance to break us up and then get together with her. "She deserves a hero like me, not a loser like you," he screamed as the police took him away. After that, I apologized to Tanya for a ton of things, following her, doubting her, and shouting at her. She accepted the apology, admitting it would have never come to it if she had told me everything in the beginning. And then we headed out to have a breakfast date. Thanks for watching. What would you do if your lover started having a lot of money all of a sudden? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and check out other videos on the channel.